Tranby Croft and Studley Royal, which was how she met my father. They must have been pleased with her work at the big house, because when Dad and she set up home together, she continued to do the household and personal laundry for the Marquis and Marchioness at our home. Clothes! I grew up hating the sight of them. The only time our kitchen was free of them was on Saturdays and Sundays. I must have seen more of ladies' and gentlemen's underwear than was good for me by the time I left home. We only saw the fire at weekends, or when we were baking or cooking. At all other times there would be a clothes horse surrounding it. Dad used to complain, but he knew there was really no use his grumbling. It brought in the extra money that was so necessary. I never knew how much, and I don't think Dad did, but Mum always seemed to have what was needed in a crisis. There were 4 of us children. I was the eldest, then came my brother Francis William, and sisters Suzanne and Olive, all at 2 yearly intervals. I was christened Rosina, but since this was bound to be abbreviated to Rose, my mother's name, and since she was not going to have the distinction of Old Rose, I've always been called Ina by my family. It's the sort of situation that should have been thought about before I was christened, as it has caused a lot of confusion and irritation during my life. People have often said to me how lucky I was to be brought up in a village in the beautiful countryside, with the freedom of the fields and lanes, the simplicity of life among animals, and above all in peace. It sounds lyrical as I write it, and perhaps in a way it was, but people forget, and sometimes I do, that for the most part life was continual hard work, even as a young child. From the time any of us can first remember, we had to play our part in the running of the house. Mum and I would get up before 6 every morning. Dad had to set off for work at past. He walked to the lodge at Fountains Abbey to get his orders from the foreman and be told where he had to go for the day. At one time he cycled, but he'd been struck by lightning, which made him too nervous to ride a bicycle ever again. My first job was to lay the kindling wood and to get the fire going. We burnt logs, which Dad and I had to cut with a cross-cut saw from a load of timber he bought off the estate. We didn't use coal. It wasn't necessary, and it cost money. Even the baking was done with wood, thin pieces cut to size, which we poked under the oven to get it to the right heat. Then there was the water to be fetched in buckets from the pump outside, or if it was a fine summer and the well there had dried up, from the one farther down in the village. The small boiler in the fireplace had to be filled. This and the kettle were the only supplies of constant hot water. After that I helped Mum get Dad's breakfast, and of course there were my brother and sisters to be got up, helped with their dressing, and generally hurried up and shouted at. It was a relief to get to school. I enjoyed learning. The building was typical of the time. There were 2 classrooms, and we were taught by the headmaster and his wife, and Mr. and Mrs. Lister. Just the 3 R's, with a little geography, history, art, and, for the girls, sewing and embroidery. Opposite the school there was a field where we used to play football. I used to keep goal at one end and Mr. Lister at the other. I loved it. Apart from the fact that I was good at it and very few balls got past me, it gave me the opportunity to use my voice. I'd scream encouragement and advice from beginning to end of the game, and I could be heard all over the village. When I went home, my mum would be angry with me and tell me off about my unladylike behaviour. It didn't make any difference. I'd be at it again the next time. The game used to take the toes out of my shoes, so eventually Mum made me wear clogs. I didn't mind. It was, after all, true Yorkshire footwear. I remember once being dressed in a lovely little bolero with a wide skirt, and with orders to take great care of them. I couldn't resist playing football, and I caught my foot in the hem of the skirt and nearly tore it away. I didn't dare go back home for Mum to see, so I went into the schoolhouse, and together Mrs. Lister and I sewed it back again. I learnt a lot in school which was to be useful to me in later life, particularly through reading and writing. I always enjoyed writing and receiving letters. I kept many that I think are going to refresh my memory as I write this book. Whereas most children left school when they were 14, I stayed on until I was 16. There were reasons for this, as Mum and I had plans for my future. I believe that those 2 extra years, when Mr. and Mrs. Lister gave me occasional individual tuition, were of the greatest value to me.